Learn the truth about some of history's most notorious serial murderers, including the British doctor who killed hundreds of people and the widow known as Lady Bluebeard, as well as the guy who served as the inspiration for the character of Psycho. Before starting, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Let's start. Number 7. Jack the Ripper. There are over 100 possible suspects. The Whitechapel neighborhood of London was rocked by rumors of a ruthless serial murderer haunting the streets in 1888. Prostitutes were enticed into isolated areas and back alleys by the mysterious lunatic, who then cut their necks and cruelly dismembered their bodies with a carving knife. 5 corpses were discovered murdered in the depressed East End neighborhood that summer and fall, setting off a countrywide manhunt and media frenzy. The murderer allegedly wrote many letters to the London Metropolitan Police Service, commonly known as Scotland Yard, mocking detectives with references to his gory crimes and making predictions about future killings. Victorian authorities struggled to solve the horrific atrocities committed by Jack the Ripper without the use of contemporary forensic methods. In November, the murderer claimed his final victim before appearing to vanish like a ghost. Despite the fact that the investigation was officially completed in 1892, Jack the Ripper continues to arouse interest today. The most prevalent ideas postulate that the murderer may have been a butcher or a surgeon given his knowledge of anatomy and vivisection. There have been suggested more than 100 suspects. Number 6. Ted Bundy. The first televised murder trial. Ted Bundy was a handsome, intelligent man who exuded charm. He seemed the least likely candidate for a serial killer, which made his 10-year murderous rampage across many states all the more shocking, and to some, alluring. Bundy was raised believing that his grandma was truly his mother after being born to an unmarried, adolescent mother, and his mother actually his sister. After a challenging youth, Bundy received his degree from the University of Washington. He then immediately began his homicidal rampage, killing his first victim in Seattle in 1966. In the Pacific Northwest, Bundy conducted a string of homicides, mostly targeting attractive college co-eds. Before being apprehended, he continued on to Utah and Colorado and killed several more women. Despite having been found guilty of abduction, he managed to get away from the police twice while he was in Colorado awaiting trial. He relocated to Florida, where he murdered a number of sorority girls before turning his attention to a 12-year-old girl, whom he raped and murdered. A week after his last murder, Bundy was ultimately caught while operating a stolen automobile, and his trial swiftly gained global attention. It was the first murder case that was entirely aired, and Bundy was prominently shown, serving as one of his own defense counsel. In an effort to postpone his execution, he developed a following in the media by inviting reporters to his cell, collecting letters of support from despondent admirers, and even getting married to one of them, and offering an endless stream of information about potential subsequent crimes. It didn't work. In 1989, he was put to death in the electric chair. The precise number of his victims remains unclear. Number 5. Jeffrey Dahmer. He committed his first murder at 18. When he was just 18 years old, Jeffrey Dahmer committed his first homicide in 1978. After an African-American man escaped his grasp and flagged down police outside Milwaukee, Wisconsin, he continued to kill until his capture in 1991. The photographs of dismembered bodies, the severed heads and genitalia of several other men, and a tub full of acid that Dahmer had used to dispose of some of his 17 victims were among the evidence found when the victim led police back to his captor's apartment. Before being ejected by his grandmother and moving into the Milwaukee flat, Dahmer had lived a nomadic existence, leaving both college and the army and staying with various family members. Dahmer was found guilty of drugging and sexually assaulting a young adolescent 3 years prior to his arrest in 1991, and with multiple killings already under his belt. He only served a year before being released, continuing his killing spree that almost exclusively targeted young men of color. The world's fascination with serial killers was rekindled by Dahmer's sensational trial, which included graphic accounts of him eating the body parts of some of his victims and admissions of necrophilia. Dahmer was given a 957-year prison term in 1992, but 2 years later, another prisoner shot and killed him. Number 4. John Wayne Gacy. He performed as a clown at children's parties. John Wayne Gacy was a well-liked man who frequently played the clown at neighborhood kids' parties, organized well-attended block parties, volunteered in local Democratic politics, and was well-liked by the majority of his suburban Chicago neighbors. However, Gacy, who had previously served time in prison for sexually abusing a teenage boy, was concealing a terrible secret right under the noses of his unsuspecting neighbors. Police got a search warrant for Gacy's home in 1978 when a 15-year-old kid who had been last seen with Gacy, and whose construction company the adolescent was expecting to work for, went missing. A class ring and clothes belonging to numerous young men who had previously been reported missing were discovered there. They were horrified to discover the rotting remains of 29 boys and teens that Gacy had raped and killed in a 4-foot crawl space beneath the house where a pervasive stink was evident. Years prior, Gacy's ex-wife had complained about the smell, but Gacy had attributed it to mildew brought on by dampness. The fact that the relatives of 3 of the victims had previously suggested Gacy as a potential suspect led to criticism of law enforcement as well. Gacy acknowledged to killing other victims and dumping their remains in a nearby lake in addition to the bodies that were discovered at his home. He failed in his attempts to use insanity as a defense. As a result, he was found guilty of 33 charges of murder and put to death by lethal injection in 1994. Number 3. Ed Gein, the inspiration behind Psycho. The guy who served as the inspiration for the grotesque and gruesome deeds depicted in Psycho, Silence of the Lambs, and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre was raised in a remote region of Wisconsin. The son of an alcoholic father and a puritanical, authoritarian mother who developed in her son a neurotic dread of both women and sex, he was a victim of abuse. He was left alone at the family farm when his father, brother, and mother all passed away within a 5-year period. He eventually cordoned off areas of the house, turning it into a sort of shrine to his mother. Local law enforcement showed up to the farm 13 years later as a result of a report regarding missing hardware store owner Bernice Worden. Worden's decapitated body was found hanging upside down from the rafters. A hall of horrors was discovered during their investigation of the property, including human body parts that had been transformed into furniture such as chairs and bowls, human faces that had been used as wall hangings, and a vest constructed from a human torso. Gein had stolen many of these horrifying objects from the graves of already deceased people, but he had also murdered one more lady in addition to Worden. He asserted that he was assembling a new version of his cherished mother using the body parts. Schizophrenia was discovered in Gein, and he was ruled incompetent for trial. He was found guilty of one of the killings 10 years after the fact, despite being mad at the time. He resided in a mental hospital for the remainder of his life. Number 2. Belle Gunness, she married to kill. The Lady Bluebeard emigrated to America from Norway in 1881, landing in Chicago where she wed another immigrant from that country. The couple had a confectionery shop and had 4 children, 2 of whom passed away at an early age. By 1900, Gunness' spouse had passed away and the store had mysteriously burnt down. Gunness was able to receive multiple insurance policy awards, enabling her to buy a farm near LaPorte, Indiana, even though both occurred under dubious circumstances. 8 months after her second marriage, she immediately remarried. Gunness said that he had been struck on the head by a large meat grinder and had suffered a deadly burn from hot water. While an inquiry was conducted, no evidence of wrongdoing could be found, which resulted in another huge insurance payment. She then started running newspaper ads looking for a third spouse, requesting that any possible suitors stop by her Indiana property. Only one survived the journey after allegedly awakening to find a sinister-looking Gunness standing over him. A number of potential suitors made the journey only to vanish forever. It's unknown exactly how many people Belle Gunness murdered, but it appears that she perished horribly. The property was destroyed by fire in February 1908. The remains of Gunness' surviving children and a woman's severed body were found among the debris. Even while authorities confirmed that the remains belonged to Gunness, rumors rapidly circulated since the body was considerably smaller than the towering, bulky Belle. Nearly a dozen dead, including the missing suitors and numerous kids, were horrifyingly found during the search for her missing head, which was never found. She fired Ray Lamfer as a farmhand a few years previously, and she later claimed that he was threatening her life. Number 1. Harold Shipman, Dr. Death, who killed 218 patients. A married father of 3 who managed to fit in 218 confirmed killings, and as many as 250, while working as a well-liked British doctor, was one of history's worst serial murderers. Harold Shipman started his murderous rampage in 1972, and it is estimated that he killed at least 71 patients while working at his first practice. He is also thought to have killed twice as many patients at a second practice that he joined after tiffs with previous employees who disliked him for being haughty, brusque, and overconfident. Finally, in 1998, A nearby funeral director and another physician became aware of the unusually large number of cremation certificates Shipman had approved. The recently dead patients themselves also showed startling parallels. The majority were older ladies who were discovered sitting up and fully clothed, rather than in bed as would often be the case with the critically ill. Despite these indicators, the way this original inquiry was handled allowed Shipman to murder 3 more people. Later that year, when lawyer Kathleen Grundy, the daughter of Shipman's final victim, claimed he had not only murdered her mother but also attempted to write a new, phony will designating him as her only beneficiary, Shipman's luck ran out. Grundy had not been cremated, unlike his other victims, and an autopsy indicated lethally high quantities of diamorphine, the drug Shipman used for most of the killings. He was legally charged with 15 murders, found guilty, and given a life sentence without the possibility of release in 2000. Shipman committed suicide in his cell and passed away in 2004. He didn't ever confess to any of the murders. This is it for today's video. What do you think of our video? Tell us in the comment section below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more future updates. Thanks for watching.